The notification chimed just as he finished loading the dishwasher. Thursday evening, 8:47 p.m. Their two kids were finally asleep upstairs after the usual battle of bedtime stories and just one more glass of water. He wiped his hands on the kitchen towel and reached for his phone, expecting the usual "miss you guys" or flight delayed message from his wife. What he read instead made his blood run cold. "I'm done with monogamy. I want options. You stay home with the kids. I need freedom to explore who I really am. This isn't negotiable." He read it 3 times. Then a fourth. The words didn't change. 15 years of marriage. 2 beautiful children. A life he'd carefully built around supporting her career, her dreams, her ambitions. And this was how she chose to tell him? Not even a phone call. A text message. Sent between conference sessions, probably while sipping wine with colleagues at some hotel bar in Seattle. His hands trembled slightly as he set the phone down on the granite counter they'd picked out together 3 years ago. The same counter where they'd shared countless morning coffees, where she'd kissed him goodbye 100 times, where just last week she'd promised this promotion would make everything worthwhile. He should have been angry. Part of him was. But mostly, he felt something else settling over him like a heavy coat: clarity. For months, he'd ignored the signs. The way she'd grown distant. How she'd started taking calls in the other room. The new wardrobe, the expensive perfume, the sudden interest in hotel gyms and networking events. He'd told himself he was being paranoid, that he was just tired from managing everything at home while she climbed the corporate ladder. Now he understood. She hadn't been working late. She'd been auditioning replacements. He looked around their kitchen. Dishes from the kids' dinner still on the table. Lunchboxes waiting to be packed for tomorrow. Permission slips that needed signing. The entire infrastructure of their family life, maintained by his hands while she pursued her passion. His phone buzzed again. "I know this is sudden. But I can't live a lie anymore. I've met someone who makes me feel alive again. Maybe more than one someone. I need you to understand, this is about my happiness. You'll always be the father of my children." The father of her children. As if he were being demoted to a supporting role in his own life. He picked up his phone and typed a response. His fingers were steady now. Calm. Understood. 1 word. That's all he sent. He could see the 3 dots appear, disappear, then appear again. She was typing something, probably surprised by his lack of resistance. But he didn't wait to see what she'd say. He had work to do. First, he opened his laptop and logged into their bank accounts. Joint checking, $42,000. Savings, $87,000. Investment account, $156,000. All of it built on his careful budgeting while she spent freely, confident in their partnership. He created a new account in his name only and initiated transfers. Exactly half of everything. Not a penny more than his legal right. He wasn't a thief. He was just no longer a fool. Next, he called their credit card company. The one where he was the primary holder and she was an authorized user. "I need to report a card as lost," he said calmly. "Please cancel it and send a replacement to my address only." The customer service representative asked if he wanted to add the authorized user to the new card. "No," he said. "That won't be necessary anymore." By midnight, he had appointments with 3 divorce attorneys for tomorrow. His best friend had agreed to watch the kids. His wife's belongings, her clothes, her books, her decorative pillows that he'd always found uncomfortable, were going into boxes destined for a storage unit on the edge of town. She wanted freedom. She was about to get more of it than she'd ever imagined. Friday morning arrived with the cruel cheerfulness of sunshine and birdsong. He made pancakes for the kids, the shaped ones, with chocolate chips for eyes, and signed the permission slips for next week's field trip. Normal dad things on a day that was anything but normal. "When's Mommy coming home?" his daughter asked, syrup dripping down her chin. "Sunday night, sweetheart. Just like always." "I miss her," his son added quietly. "I know, buddy. I know." What he didn't tell them was that the mom they knew, the one who existed in their memories of bedtime songs and weekend park visits, might not be coming back at all. The woman returning Sunday would be someone different. Someone who'd chosen personal gratification over the family she'd created. After dropping the kids at school, he met with Richard Chen, the divorce attorney his friend had recommended. Chen's office was in a modest building downtown, walls lined with law books that looked actually used, not decorative. "I've seen this before," Chen said after hearing the story, reading the screenshots of the text messages. The sudden declaration. The entitlement. Usually comes after a promotion or career success. They start believing they deserve more than what they have. Can she claim she was joking? That I overreacted? Chen shook his head. Not with this evidence. She explicitly stated she's engaging in affairs and expects you to accept it. In this state, we may not have fault-based divorce anymore, but this documentation helps with asset division and custody. He leaned forward. The fact that you've been the primary caregiver while she traveled constantly? That's significant. Courts care about stability for children. They spent 2 hours mapping strategy, custody arrangements, asset division, spousal support, which, Chen noted with a slight smile, might actually flow in his direction given his role as primary caregiver and her substantial income. "One question," Chen asked as they finished. "Have you responded to her since that first text?" "No. Just the one word, understood." "Perfect. Don't engage further. Let her wonder. People like this, they expect drama. They expect you to fight for them, beg them to reconsider. When you don't, it destabilizes their narrative." By Friday evening, her belongings were packed. 23 boxes, neatly labeled, professionally stored. He'd hired movers who didn't ask questions. The house felt bigger now, emptier, but also cleaner somehow. Like removing an infected tooth, painful but necessary. His phone had been buzzing all day. Messages from her, each one more agitated than the last. "Why aren't you responding? We need to talk about this like adults. You're being childish. I deserve the chance to explain in person. This silent treatment is emotional abuse." That last one almost made him laugh. Emotional abuse. From the woman who'd blown up their marriage via text message because she wanted to sleep around. He typed one more message: "Divorce papers will be ready when you return. I suggest you find alternative accommodation." Then he blocked her number. Saturday was the hardest day. The kids kept asking questions he couldn't answer honestly. Why was Daddy reorganizing everything? Where did Mommy's stuff go? Why did he seem sad? "Just doing some spring cleaning," he lied. "Mommy and I have some grown-up things to discuss when she gets back." That night, after they were asleep, he sat in the living room with a glass of whiskey, something he rarely did, and let himself feel everything he'd been holding back. The betrayal. The humiliation. The grief for the life he'd thought they were building. But also something else, relief. Because buried beneath the pain was a truth he'd been avoiding for years. He'd been unhappy too. Living for her schedule, her needs, her ambitions. Shrinking himself to make room for her expansion. Accepting crumbs of attention and calling it love. Maybe her cruelty was actually a gift. A brutal, devastating gift that freed him from a marriage that had stopped being a partnership years ago. Sunday evening came too quickly and too slowly all at once. He'd told the kids that Mommy would be home late, that they shouldn't wait up. They'd accepted this with the easy trust of children who still believed their parents had everything under control. If only they knew. He'd spent the day in careful preparation. The divorce papers sat in a manila envelope on the kitchen table, positioned exactly where she'd see them when she walked in. Her keys would no longer work. He'd changed the locks that morning, another legally permissible step Chen had approved. Her new keys sat beside the envelope, along with the address of the storage facility and a paid receipt for 3 months' storage. The house was spotless. Not because he was trying to impress her, but because he'd needed something to do with his hands, his anxiety, his churning thoughts. Every surface gleamed. The kids' artwork hung perfectly straight on the walls. Fresh flowers, irises, his favorite, not hers, sat in a vase by the window. He'd made himself into the perfect homemaker while she'd climbed the corporate ladder. Now she'd see exactly what she was giving up. At 9:47 p.m., headlights swept across the front windows. A car door slammed. He heard her footsteps on the walkway, confident, quick, the walk of someone who expected to be welcomed home. The doorknob rattled. Once, twice. Confusion in the sound. Then his phone rang. He'd unblocked her number an hour ago, knowing this moment would come. "Why doesn't my key work?" Her voice was sharp with irritation, not concern. "I changed the locks. Your new keys are on the kitchen table, along with some documents you need to see." "What? You can't lock me out of my own house." "I'm not locking you out. I'm asking you to knock like the guest you've chosen to become." Silence. Then, "This is ridiculous. Let me in. We need to talk." "We do," he agreed. "But it won't be the conversation you're expecting." He walked to the door and opened it. She looked good. Too good. New haircut, expensive highlights, a dress he'd never seen before that probably cost more than their monthly grocery budget. She'd lost weight, invested in herself, bloomed in her freedom. And none of it was for him. "What the hell is going on?" she demanded, pushing past him into the house. "Where's all my stuff? Why are you?" She stopped short when she saw the kitchen table. The envelope. The keys. The papers that represented the legal dissolution of everything they'd built. "What is this?" "Exactly what you asked for. Freedom." She picked up the papers with trembling hands, her face cycling through emotions too quickly to track. Confusion. Disbelief. Anger. Something that might have been fear. "This is insane. I sent you a text about needing space, and you're divorcing me." He pulled out his phone and read her words back to her, his voice steady. "I'm done with monogamy. I want options. I've met someone who makes me feel alive again. Maybe more than one someone." "Does that sound like needing space to you?" "I was drunk. I was confused. You can't." "I can, and I am." He crossed his arms. "You made a choice. You get to live with it. But the kids will be fine. Better than fine, actually, because they'll have one parent who doesn't view them as an obligation that interferes with personal pleasure." Her face flushed red. "That's not fair. I love my children." "I'm sure you do. In your way. But love isn't just a feeling. It's showing up. Being present. Putting someone else's needs before your own wants." He gestured at the papers. "Something you've forgotten how to do." The next 2 weeks unfolded like a controlled demolition. Professional. Methodical. Devastating. She'd tried, at first, to fix things. Flowers delivered to the house with cards claiming it was all a mistake. Late-night calls he didn't answer, voicemails that swung between apologetic and accusatory. She showed up at the kids' school, creating a scene that required him to document everything for the custody filing. "I can change," she'd sobbed during one court-mandated mediation session. "I was having a crisis. Everyone makes mistakes." Chen had remained impassive. Making a mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Sending explicit text messages declaring you're actively pursuing affairs while your husband cares for your children is a choice. The evidence was damning. Not just her original texts, but others Chen's investigators had uncovered. Messages to colleagues. Dating app profiles she'd created. Hotel receipts that didn't match her business travel reports. A pattern of deception that stretched back nearly a year. She'd been living a double life, and she'd been sloppy about hiding it. The custody evaluation was particularly brutal for her. The court-appointed psychologist interviewed everyone: him, her, the kids, their teachers, their pediatrician. The report painted a clear picture of their family dynamic. Primary caregiver, father, handles 90% of daily childcare, school involvement, medical appointments, extracurricular activities. Mother, peripheral involvement. Children express affection but also note frequent absences. Both children spontaneously mentioned that Daddy knows where everything is and Mommy forgets things about us. He'd tried not to feel vindicated reading that. But it was hard not to when every authority figure confirmed what he'd always known. He'd been doing this alone for a long time. "I want custody," she announced during one meeting, her lawyer sitting stiffly beside her. "I'm their mother." "You want custody," Chen repeated slowly, "despite traveling 200+ days per year for work? Despite having no established childcare plan? Despite the children's clear preference to remain in their current home with their primary caregiver?" Her lawyer leaned in to whisper something, but she shook him off. "I'll quit my job if I have to." "The job you texted your husband was more important than your marriage." Chen didn't smile, but something sharp glinted in his eyes. "The job you said you needed freedom to fully embrace." She had no answer for that. The financial settlement was equally straightforward. Despite her higher income, she'd never contributed proportionally to household expenses. He had spreadsheets proving it. Years of bank statements showing him paying for groceries, kids' activities, home repairs, while her income vanished into personal expenses. Designer clothes, spa treatments, business dinners that the investigators proved were dates. In light of your client's financial irresponsibility and substantially higher income, Chen presented to the mediator, "We're requesting primary physical custody, child support, and temporary spousal maintenance while my client retrains for higher earning employment." Her face went white. "Spousal support? You can't be serious." "You wanted options," he said quietly. "These are mine." At home, life continued its strange new normal. The kids adjusted faster than he'd expected. Children were resilient that way, especially when their primary parent remained constant. They missed their mother, but they'd been missing her for years. They just hadn't had words for it yet. "Is Mommy coming back?" his daughter asked one night during their new routine. "She'll visit," he promised. "She loves you very much. Sometimes grown-ups can't live together anymore, but that doesn't change how much we love you." "But you're not leaving." His son's voice was small, afraid. "Never. I'm here. Always." That night, after they were asleep, he stood in the doorway of his bedroom, his alone now, and felt something unexpected: hope. 6 months later, the divorce was final. She got supervised visitation every other weekend, pending completion of a co-parenting course the judge had mandated. She'd kept her job, quitting had been an empty threat, but her travel was now restricted to non-custody weekends, a provision her company wasn't happy about. He got the house, primary custody, and a child support payment that reflected her substantial income. The spousal maintenance was temporary but fair. Enough to let him finish his degree, the one he'd abandoned years ago to support her career climb. She'd fought it all, spent tens of thousands on lawyers trying to paint him as vindictive, manipulative, cruel. But the evidence didn't lie, and judges had seen this story before. High-earning spouse abandons family, then claims victimhood when consequences arrive. The day the final papers were signed, he didn't celebrate. He took the kids for ice cream and told them simply that some things had been decided, that nothing would change in their daily lives, that both parents loved them. "Are you sad, Daddy?" his daughter asked, chocolate ice cream on her nose. "A little," he admitted. "But also a little happy. Sometimes things need to end so new things can begin." She seemed to accept this with the philosophical wisdom of 8-year-olds everywhere. His ex, he could think of her that way now, tried one more time to reach him a week later. A long email that arrived at 2 a.m., clearly written after wine and regret had loosened her fingers. "I've been doing therapy," it began. "Trying to understand why I blew up our life. My therapist says I was having a midlife crisis, that I confused career success with personal fulfillment, that I took you for granted because you were always just there." He read it twice. There was some self-awareness in it, some genuine remorse, but also justification. Explanation that served as excuse. "I know I can't fix what I broke," it continued. "But I need you to know I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just so lost, and you were so stable, and I mistook stability for stagnation. I thought I needed excitement, adventure, passion. What I really needed was to appreciate what I had." The email ended with a question: "Is there any chance, any at all, that we could try again? For the kids?" He sat with that question for a long time. Part of him, the part that had loved her for 15 years, that remembered who she'd been before ambition ate her alive, wanted to say yes. To believe people could change. To give their family another chance. But the larger part, the part that had spent 6 months rebuilding his life and watching his children thrive in the stability he provided, knew the truth. Some things, once broken, cannot be mended. Some people only want what they've lost when it's too late to claim it back. He typed a response. I appreciate your honesty, but no. What you mistook for stagnation was actually commitment. What you called boring was actually love. I was never your anchor holding you back, I was your foundation keeping you safe. You demolished that foundation, and I've spent 6 months building something new. Something that doesn't include you. The kids will always have a mother. But I no longer have a wife, and I no longer want one. Not you, not anyone, not for a long while. I hope you find whatever you were looking for in those hotel rooms and dating apps. I hope it was worth it. I found something better, myself. He hit send before he could reconsider. 3 months later, he was sitting in a coffee shop near campus, his campus now, where he'd re-enrolled in engineering, when someone sat down across from him. This seat taken. He looked up to find a woman about his age, smile lines around her eyes, holding a physics textbook that looked as worn as his. It is now, he said, surprising himself. They talked for 2 hours. About school, about career changes, about life. She mentioned an ex-husband, an amicable divorce, shared custody that actually worked. He mentioned his story, the abbreviated version. Let me guess, she said. She wanted the exciting new chapter but didn't want to give up the comfort of the old one. Exactly that. My ex did the same thing. Wanted freedom and security. Adventure and stability. Some people want to eat their cake, have it too, and complain about the calories. She stirred her coffee. The difference is, some of us realize what we had before it's gone. And some of us learn to be okay alone, he added. Are you okay alone? He thought about his kids, sleeping peacefully at home with a babysitter he trusted. About his classes, challenging and engaging after years of intellectual dormancy. About the house that was finally his, filled with his choices, his energy, his peace. Yeah, he said. I really am. She smiled. Good. Because the best relationships happen when 2 people who are fine alone decide they're better together. He didn't ask for her number. Didn't make promises or plans. But when he left, he realized he was smiling, something that had felt impossible 6 months ago. His phone buzzed. A text from his ex. Can we talk? Please. He deleted it without responding. That chapter was closed. He had new pages to write now, and they didn't include her at all.